Athletic. We're going to talk Super Bowl and Notre Dame college football because that is, after all, what Matt follows. He's passionate about Notre Dame, and he is a national writer for college football. But first, we're going to start with the Super Bowl. We've got Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And everything is favored toward the Chiefs. But in my mind, the fact that it's in Tampa, first time ever in history that the host team is playing in their home stadium, how do you think in any way whatsoever that the Bucs are not favored here?
Well, because they're going against the reigning champs. And if you're on that, look at that Bucs roster, I know they've got the GOAT under center, but there's a lot of green players on that team, a lot of players who have not played on this stage before. In some ways, I almost think being at home for a Super Bowl could be a disadvantage in a normal year where there's just so much chaos going on in your backyard. But here with limited fans, limited media, limited everything, I imagine it's going to be much more like a normal home game. So I do see the advantage with Tampa Bay in that regard, but I can understand why Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, that dynamic duo, is favored to repeat again this Sunday.
Did you ever see in all of your time covering Patrick Mahomes in college that he would be, well, for one, already a Super Bowl champ? But I remember when Andy Reid let Alex Smith go, unfortunately, to the Washington football team. I just didn't expect him to be as good as he is. What did you see in him that you could tell his game would translate to the National Football League and he's a Super Bowl champion?
Nobody saw this, Jay. I mean, if they did, he wouldn't have fallen in the draft. The guy's already worth $500 million and has won a Super Bowl and an MVP in his first couple of years in the league. So nobody saw this coming. I mean, he had a losing record at Texas Tech under head coach Cliff Kingsbury, who ended up getting hired as the Arizona Cardinals head coach after getting fired from Texas Tech. So nobody saw this coming. I think a lot of people kind of look at the Big 12, look down at the Big 12 because they don't play defense in that league, and every team's putting up 50 or 60 points every week. I think people thought he was a product of the system. No one in their right mind thought he'd be this good this soon. And I guess we're all eating crow right now, and for the better, because the game's better when you got a guy who can do it all back there the way Patrick Mahomes can in Kansas City.
Do you see, because what I see is a trend here that everyone is almost making the Bucs the underdog, and yet he had no, and granted part of it was the defense with Tampa Bay too, but he beat Drew Brees, then he beats Aaron Rodgers, first time ever facing him, and now here we go after what? They met in 2019 when the Patriots won, and now here we go again, Patriots, Bucs. Do you think that what happened in the regular season, the fact that the Chiefs crushed the Bucs, will play into this game, or is it a completely different game? And plus, it's a Super Bowl.
I think it's a completely different game. I think when you look at that Chiefs roster from last year to this year, there's more of a known quantity there. And so you would expect them to kind of take care of business week in and week out in the regular season. Whereas with a team like Tampa, with Tom Brady back there, with them hitting their stride toward the end of the season, I mean, it took them a while there early on in the season to really, get their bearings and understand each other and hit their stride. I mean, they did not win their division. They've had to do all this on the road so far in the playoffs, and they've won their last two games as road underdogs. So I just think this is a team that has steadily improved and gained confidence week after week. And anytime you can go into Lambeau Field and win a playoff game, that has to do wonders for you as an organization. And so I don't think they're coming into this one thinking it's us against the world. I think they think we've got a great quarterback. They've got a great quarterback. Let's, draw our guns, for lack of a better term, and see who comes out as the winner at the end.
Do you have a prediction already in your mind of who you think is going to win this game? If the Chiefs are favored at -3, who would you take?
I got to take the underdog because it's such a close game, and they have Tom Brady. I mean, it's his 10th rodeo. I mean, I was in 7th grade when he first won this. I mean, it's absurd. LeBron James wasn't even in the NBA at that point. There's so many different mile markers you could look at. The last time this, last time that. It's absolutely absurd that this guy at the age of 43, who said today he wants to play until he's at least 45, is doing this. And if anyone ever thought that the quarterback position was overrated or over-scrutinized in sports history, I present to you Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. I mean, what he has done for them as an organization, on the field, off the field, mentally, physically, just seeing what they've been able to do there in such a short period of time with them is really unbelievable. And so, look, Kansas City is a great team. I won't be surprised if they win. They're favored for a reason. They won it last year. I just cannot bet against Tom Brady anymore. I can't. It's asking me to give away money, and I can't do that.
Can we do some quick player prop with you? Here we go.
Let's do it.
300 passing yards in a win. You're taking Tom Brady at plus 325. Or I guess you just said you think that the Bucs would win, but could you see taking Patrick Mahomes at plus 150?
At 300 yards in a win?
Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, I think it's both quarterbacks are going to sling it. I think there's going to be a lot of passing yards in this game, and depending on what the weather is. But I would bet on the over for both quarterbacks if that's what we're asking here.
Oh wow, okay. Interceptions. We know Tom Brady had 3 interceptions in the NFC Championship. Tom Brady over 0.1 a half at minus 167 or under a half on interceptions at plus 131.
I'll go over. Coming off a 3-pick game, it takes one tip, one hit by a defensive lineman to put things up in the air and up for grabs. I would say he probably has at least one.
Receiving yards, Tyreek Hill over 92 and a half at minus 125 or under 92 and a half at plus 101.
I'll go under. I know he's such a dynamic playmaker, and they don't win the Super Bowl without him last year. But this Bucs defense is pretty lethal, and I think they're going to come out with a game plan, keyed on stopping him, keyed on keeping him from getting loose. And frankly, for the Chiefs will probably be just fine with that because they have so many weapons elsewhere on the field that they're going to get theirs no matter what. But I'll go under in this case for Tyreek Hill.
On the other side, Mike Evans over 63 and a half receiving yards or under at minus 118.
I will go over for Mike Evans. I think Tom Brady and him have developed a great rapport over the course of the season. He's just such a bigger body that you could get him in these one-on-one situations where it's just going to be hard to outmaneuver him or out-wrestle him to go up there and get that ball. I'm actually surprised that number is as low as it is. I think he's going to go over there. First
offensive play from scrimmage will be a pass at minus 124 or a run at plus 100.
I'm going pass. It's Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. I think I want to see a pass. Let me put it that way. So I'll go pass. I'll go for what I'm rooting for.
Could you see any trick play specials here? And let's say a player to attempt a pass, including overtime, 2.5. That obviously is not a quarterback at plus 165 or under 2.5 at minus 215.
Over. I'll probably go under 2.5, but I mean, we got to, with Andy Reid's on the other sideline, you got to define trick play. I mean, Chad Henne out of shotgun on 4th and 1. That to me is a trick play because no one sees it coming. But I don't know if Vegas will see it the same way. But I'll go under with these two guys, knowing how good they are at throwing the football.
Okay. Are you going to have any kind of a family virtual get-together for the Super Bowl?
No, I'm just going to hope my kid goes to sleep in time for kickoff and doesn't wake up in the middle of it like she did last year.
So thank you very much. It was fun talking Super Bowl, but we got to get to something serious here as we in this segment. I am annoyed with Notre Dame football.
You too, huh?
Yes. I feel like it is just get in the conference or just go away completely. And I know it's a business, but I just don't like how the ACC, because of what I call the playdemic, Notre Dame knew that they were in a position where it's like, we're not going to be able to compete for a bowl game unless we're in a conference. So ACC, will you please let us in? And we gladly say, yes, come on, join the ACC for a season. Then they're out, even though I know all the other sports are in the ACC. But isn't it time that Notre Dame just says, fine, we're all in? Or I'd rather them just be all out. What's your take?
It's funny you bring that up today, February 1st, the start of a new era in the ACC with Commissioner Jim Phillips from Northwestern taking over for John Swofford. Look, Notre Dame has all the leverage here right now. I mean, they don't get an ACC network without 5 games a year from Notre Dame. I mean, no matter where they travel to, they're going to fill the seats. They're going to draw a lot of TV eyeballs. And in the case of this year, when the ACC basically welcomed them home for a year, the ACC got to say they had 2 teams in the playoff this year, which rarely happens for any conference with Notre Dame and Clemson. I think short-term, financially, it would be better for Notre Dame. They'd be making more money because the ACC would scrap their TV deal, get a new one, and Notre Dame really isn't making all that much on their own from NBC. It's more about the prestige of having a national brand, being able to travel coast to coast year in and year out. I just think independence is so deeply woven into the fabric of that university that it's such a strong selling point, not just for the football program, but for the University of Notre Dame. And it's going to take something really drastic for them to give that up and essentially regionalize themselves as a football power in a conference that only plays in one part of the country every year. So unless the playoff committee or someone, maybe the ACC, which I don't think they will, but unless someone gives them an ultimatum, I don't think there's much of an appetite in South Bend right now to deviate from the norm, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. It just seems really odd that, we're in this situation where every sport, because you talk about the prestige, but I think of the prestige outside of football too. And it's just weird to have basketball, swimming, all of the other sports in there as well. But you also mentioned that they don't make as much money as an independent. That wouldn't necessarily translate to they would make more money if they were in the ACC?
From a media rights standpoint, they're probably making less right now. The double-edged sword, if you will, if you're Notre Dame, is they have so many bigwig donors. They have so many people who went to that school, who send their kids to that school, who live all over the country, all over the world, really. And that's one of the parts about Notre Dame that I think makes it so unique to its students and to its alumni is you get your freshman year dorm mate. You're going to have a kid from Boston and a kid from California and a kid from Tokyo. You're going to have kids from all over the place. And, there have been a number of alums who swear by that independence and give so much money every year, basically to keep that independence that I just don't know what the long-term damage would be to the brand, so to speak, and to really the alumni base from a donation standpoint if they were to regionalize themselves and join the ACC and play that same group of opponents every year. They're not traveling out to California every year, and they're not doing this, they're not doing that. Again, short term, they'd make a lot more money, and the ACC would love it because the ACC does not have a great TV deal right now, and they would get to scrap it and get a great new TV deal with a full slate of Notre Dame games to sell to the other TV networks. I just don't know if the university wants to do that right now and give up something that they've cherished for pretty much their entire existence, over 100 years now.
Yeah, it has been a long time. I still have my Notre Dame, my little mini helmet behind me that's on my shelf. It's weird that I don't know. I guess it's like a jilted lover. That's how I feel. Like, it's just, you don't want me. You don't want me. That's how I feel the ACC is. Thank you.
If they did join a conference, I don't think like that Notre Dame hate, right? The people who hate watch them, I don't think that would be as strong either. So those people's money count too, right? Those people's eyeballs count too. Jay, your eyeballs count. So, we got to keep up the hate factor while we're at it as well.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Matt. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Have a good weekend.
You too, buddy. Thank you.
All right, bye. All right, that was Matt Fortuna, The Athletic. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Here's my prediction. As I think about the Super Bowl coming up this Sunday at 6:30 on CBS, what's my pick? I'll make it on Sunday morning. I'm not ready to right now. That's it for Just for Sport. Hope you enjoyed this segment with Matt Fortuna. I appreciate him coming on. Thank you very much to him, and for everyone that's been listening on the Props Network and watching on our YouTube, Twitch, Facebook channels. You know what I'm going to say.